So as somebody who's a self-published author on this app and as somebody that like does all their own marketing, let me just tell you, it's a hellscape trying to market to people on Booktok when you don't really fit any of the niches that Booktok is like rabid for. So I self-published a novella around this time last year. It's called The Wonderful Lady B. It is about an Irish woman in the Victorian era who is murdered by her best friend, comes back from the dead, and realizes that now not only is she immortal, but in order to survive and thrive, she must consume human flesh. And for self-publishing, having never done that before, having not been in like the Booktok writer talk community before that, I thought it was a rip-roaring success. Every time I would go to the post office and send out a shipment, or every time I would see that somebody bought a digital download, it was a hit of serotonin unlike any other. It was also really great having people write to me about how this was cathartic for them. I also have gotten written to about how I did disabled representation well because the main love interest of the first book was a wheelchair user. And I have a whole other video about how I was like, surely there is better shit out there. And apparently there's not a lot of better shit. So I'm glad that my shit made some people feel seen and felt a little sexy. Also, for everybody that read Volume 1, hold fast. Never assume that anyone is gone forever in this series, especially not Felix. Anyway, so I knew I always wanted to make this a series. I started working on Volume 2 not long after Volume 1 was published. I had already done a video series of The Wonderful Lady B, so I had a little bit to start with, but Volume 2 is very much a book. It is 50,000 words at this point, which is very exciting, but it's also terrifying because now we are in the thick of it, and now I have to figure out how to market this damn thing. And so I'm like, okay, what like works? What's successful? What are the girls doing? So I go through, all the Booktok boyfriends, Booktok recommendations, all that shit. And I'm like, oh no, I don't really fit any of like the hot trends right now. Because once I was rereading it and I've been doing the edits and I still have to do like a couple little bit more things sprinkled in, I'm like, oh yeah, enemies to lovers. And I'm like, no, it's not. Barbara and Hugh are not enemies to lovers. They are just sort of two people in an impossible situation trying to cope with their own issues and then like be supportive of each other while also like kind of being terrified of their own feelings. Also, enemies to lovers seems to be a term that people have confusion about. It's enemies to lovers, not abusive partners to lovers. But hey, maybe I'm just like super vanilla. Anyway, then it's like, oh, okay, I have a morally gray love interest. Oh yeah, the kids will tear up the seats for that one. Wrong again, bitch. Because again, going through my edits and rereading, Hugh is not this like big alpha morally gray daddy character. He's just a dude. Like, he's a really nice dude who misses his wife and like has a lot of feelings, but doesn't know how to process them. Like, he's a guy that has emotionally shut down because he's over 300 years old. He's witnessed his country go through upheaval and famine and war. He has had to flee said country over an event that he still feels responsible for, even though he is completely in the right for having had happen. And he's also surrounded by incredibly toxic people in a foreign country and also might be suffering from a little bit of an ED. That's not like the dark brooding, I mean, God knows Hugh broods, but like not in the way that I feel like a lot of sexy Booktok boyfriends brood. There's also like a lot of tension in Volume 2. There's like a lot of yearning, a lot of no, we shan't, but we mustn't, but we will, but we won't. Even with the characters that take place in the more modern era, like, not to spoil, but as an author, sometimes your characters just sort of start like gravitating towards each other. And I've noticed that between Billy Justine and Cook Wallace, and it makes me very excited. But again, it's not one of those things that involves like getting flipped around into 37 positions in a mirrored room or whatever you guys are into on Booktok. I sound very judgmental right now, and I guarantee you I'm not being. I fully understand the appeal of these books. I'm not shaming anybody who reads them. I'm just very insecure about my place in this community. Because the theme of The Wonderful Lady B Volume 2 seems to be like renewal and hope, and communication is another big one. Either communication through learning somebody else's language or people finally like relearning how to talk to each other about what has happened to them. Community also seems to be a big theme, like building a community or finding community in a place that you have not had it before. being embraced by other people's communities that you did not think would like you. There's a character named Miriam whose parents invite Hugh to Seder at one point, and he has no idea what's going on, and they have no idea what's going on, but they're like, this boy needs someone to just sit at a table with him and go, how's your day? Or like finding out that the community that you really want to belong to is kind of the worst. Like Cecilia Mormake is one of the worst characters I've ever written, and Barbara's like, no, this is the person that I should be hanging out with because like she's everything I wanted to be and everything I wanted to spend time with when I was young. And she's the worst. Oh, also, Aleister Crowley shows up for like 5 seconds to deliver some plot points and then promptly gets like half the fingers on one of his hands broken. A couple of historical characters like pop up at certain points. Oh, but there are vampires. They are there. They're evil. They're not like fun vampires. Oh, and there's a mermaid. There's a mermaid that is also a lesbian. Oh, and a masked ball. I know that Booktok loves a good masked ball. There's so much still to do with this book. I have to meet with my copyright lawyer. I have to write copy for my website. I have to contact the person who is incredibly talented and wonderful who does my cover art. And then I have to send out the damn thing to get printed. And I'm just sort of really hoping that I get a repeat or better of the first time I did this, because now that I know what to do and what it takes, I'm really hoping to hit a little bit of magic again. And I hope that it hits Booktok in a way that like people appreciate.